Hi, folks. Welcome to the Getting Your Edge podcast. My name is Dennis.
And hi, I'm Judy Gratton.
And we're here to help you right-size your home and your life.
Welcome back, 2024. It's great to see everybody, and I hope you're listening today. We had some fantastic. Oh, sorry.
I'm like, what is that noise? On the road again?
On the road again, Willie Nelson, of
like
course,
it.
because we are here with Jason Thiel to talk about RVs and downsizing into an RV as a possibility for one of your downsizing adventures. My name is Dennis Day, and I'm here co-hosting with Judy Gratton. How's your 2024 going, Judy?
So far, so good. We're, 9 days into it, but
Yeah.
It's been a...
And you got
Who's counting, right?
So Jason is from Pacific Northwest RVs in Tacoma, and he's here to talk about RVs and all things RVs. So, Jason, let's start out 2024 with what's happening in the RV world. Tell us about your business.
Things are starting to pick up. They took a turn for a little while because of all the interest rates and whatnot this last year, but it's starting to kind of come back to the real life of people wanting to go out and have fun. The fear factor has been kind of eliminated from the COVID pandemic, but of course we know COVID's on the rise again. So some people still are carrying that with them, but at the same time, it really is just about families and trying to make memories. And so in that light of things, people are starting to pursue these again as a recreational opportunity, not just an escape.
Was it pretty crazy during the COVID years?
I can't even explain to people. I heard a lot of information from different aspects of just retail business in America and how their business accelerated to levels they had never seen. But a side note, when I learned that like Goldman Sachs and these different foundations in the money world utilize RVs and the RV buying and selling as a litmus check as to where the economy is going to go. They can basically determine whether or not we're going to go into a recession based on how RVs and their purchases and whatnot are accelerating or decelerating, right? So whether it just depends on what's going on. It was so off the charts that it was impossible to keep everybody happy. So it opened up a lot of opportunities in business way outside of just selling. The people that were making livings from moonlighting, simply just repairing RVs, was off the charts. Selling tires for RVs at Les Schwab doubled and tripled in costs before there was even a need for resources, right? And now we know that there's a lot of problem with materials and whatnot. But my point is that it created an obvious hole in different components and things that we use and spend here in America, like from electronic, multiplexers and different devices to operate the different pieces of the platform of the RV, depending on what level you were buying. We were getting those from other countries. And so, if they were tied down, we were tied down. So you could have bought a 2022 RV with a 2019 chassis and thinking you're getting all these features, but you're not. You're getting something that's just got a label on it. Yeah, it was crazy. I don't know if that explains your question, Ram, as effectively as you want, but it was just nuts. There were so many things that threw curveballs at us.
I'll bet. I was not aware of that about Goldman Sachs. I've learned something new today. So.
Yeah, that was a new piece of information for me this last couple of years. Yeah.
I'll check with you to see how the economy is doing.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently it's one of the top 3 factors. I could be wrong, and feel free to look me up, but it's in like top 3 or top 5 factors in the United States economy to determine the readiness for a recession.
Well,
Interesting, huh?
in terms of, we're talking a lot right now to people who are considering downsizing. And I know I've had a lot of clients who have downsized either to a smaller home and then they want to, then they get an RV to travel. And I've even had some that's their home. They move to an RV. So have you seen trends in the RV industry that indicate a growing interest in downsizing and smaller living areas?
I think what's happened is, I'll say one thing. It's always been an option, right? So, like, I even know in the Tri-Cities area, a gentleman who has a mobile home park, not an RV park. He has travel trailers that he has sort of upgraded their ability for winterization and just making them more sound to keeping the cold in or the cold out, depending on what time of year it is, right? He has used them for people to live in already. Now, the other thing too is there's a lot of people that see those trends and maybe lower income decides, I could sell let's be real. If your home now should be worth $400,000 to $550,000 if you're just a regular blue collar person, pretty much, right? 5 years ago, that was 250,000 ish, right? So people were saying, I could take my $250,000, figure out a way to balance that out for the next 20 years, rely on my Social Security, maybe some sort of pension. If we combine our home, then we could go buy a $30,000 travel trailer, fifth wheel motorhome, travel around, see the grandkids, spend part of the season with this child and the grandkids, and then this child and the grandkids, and migrate around and have fun. It seems like it's a perfect fit, but it's kind of a fairy tale because oftentimes the wife gets sick of it. She wants to be able to nest a little bit, relax, have her space. There's a plethora of reasons. It could be from, I want to put up Christmas decorations and they're all in storage, to I miss having the family reunion in my backyard in the middle of summer. So it does deteriorate the excitement after a while, but it is starting to change now because more folks like my parents, my dad went the route of, he loves hot rods. He bought sports cars, fun things, right? But a lot of the people from that age, because when I was a child, I spent months and months camping with all of his siblings and my grandparents. My parents were the only ones who didn't have an RV. But again, my dad liked motorcycles and hot rods. So my summers from June 1st to August 31st was traveling with somebody in my family to some lake, some beach, some Shakespearean festival in Ashland, you name it, right? It was just a plethora of things to do in the Northwest.
You went in RVs with them, or you went with your parents in a car and camped out?
I went with them in their RVs, right? And plus my dad's job at that time, he was out of town a lot. So, it just, you fit in where you can fit in. And I was the oldest grandchild, so I got to go with everybody. So the people from that age group now that are in their late 60s, early 70s are often realizing we could sell our home right now because they're often thinking like, it's not going to get any better than this, the value of our home. So let's get rid of it right now, put the money in the bank, and then go find the least expensive way to enjoy our time and have fun. And so that is starting to pick up more than I've ever been around to see it. But ironically, their taste for what they want is high. So they,
the RV, you mean?
Yes. So they come in with $1 million taste, and they realize we might be going to Burger King. It just depends on exactly what they're willing to part with. And so
I've seen a meme on Facebook of this RV that's like 3 stories high and has a hot tub on the roof, and I'm like, oh my God, that's, my son was like, let's get this, and I'm like, no, we're not getting that. But do you have some success stories of people that you've dealt with that have tied the RV into their downsizing dreams?
Yeah, so I have a gal that I know, and she has her partner. They're not married. Him and her spent about the last 15 years together. She was a stewardess, flight attendant, and
Hmm.
they make a good income, but they don't, I mean, it's not out of this world, you know. And what really benefited her is I believe she worked for Alaska Airlines for a lot of years, so she had a great retirement package put together. She did the smart thing when she was younger. Um, I think her first husband passed away at an early age, and so she was widowed. And then she took a little bit of money she got from that, and then her time and invested on some acreage down in the Chehalis area.
Hmm.
She broke it all down into like 10 parcels, I think, an acre apiece, and sold it. And they built homes on there, so she did rather well. She didn't make millions, but she made enough that would have been way outside of what she could have done just relying on her own resources,
Right.
right? Um, the result there was is that she said, you know what, I want to see the world. Well, she was taking her time. They were very picky with what they wanted. Then she had a stroke.
Oh,
It was a minor stroke, but it caused some, calculations problems, the ability to just, process things. And she picked it back up, but she was a little slow, and she took naps like she had never done before in her life and stuff. And so it changed her daily put in terms of her energy and whatnot. The real part of it, though, that made sense to her was that why am I wasting my time looking for the perfect piece? You know, we try to teach these folks, you're looking for 10 out of 10. If I get 8 out of 10, it should be a home run. 6 or 7 out of 10, depending on what those bullet points are, should be exactly what you want. So with her, we got the 7 out of 10. 4 months later, we found the 8 out of 10. 4 months later, we found the 9 out of 10. She literally upgraded. But here's what happened. It allowed us, though, because it was such short lived, to pretty much give her almost everything she paid for the unit. Not to mention, are you familiar with the tax credit that happens in this industry?
no,
So
no.
let's say, I'll use round numbers. Let's say you buy a unit for $100,000 and you want to trade it. I'm going to change that verbiage a little bit. Let's say you own a unit that's worth $100,000. You're buying the unit that's $200,000. The taxes in our area now would be basically 10%, right?
Mhm.
So your taxes are $20,000. If you trade that $100,000 unit in, you only pay taxes on the remaining balance.
Okay.
So you get the
So,
tax credit.
okay. All right.
There's
Very
not any other state that does that I'm aware of. Idaho doesn't do it. California doesn't do it. Montana doesn't do it. Nevada doesn't do it. None of the touching states. And of course, Oregon, there is no taxes, right? So it is what it
right.
is there. But you get that benefit for trading in. Now it's got to be motorized for motorized. You can't trade in a travel trailer for a motorhome and get the same thing.
Oh, okay.
You can trade a motorhome in for a travel trailer and get it, though. You can go the other way because of the value of the vehicle.
Oh, okay. Okay.
There is it doesn't cross pollinate quite fluidly, but it works. But the point is she did it so fast that in her mind the tax credit and the way the RVs fluctuate, it's very much a sine wave. I mean, it's the only industry where you have a depreciating asset, but it really could be worth more next year than it was this year.
Even though even though it's a
Yeah.
asset.
Yeah, we have folks that come in the peak of the season sometimes, depending on what the trend is in the RV industry, and they will be looking for this particular piece in the middle of summer, which is the peak, right? Maybe late spring, and we give them a value, they pass on it. They hit the winter and say, you know what, I'm sick of looking, let's just go do it. Now their unit comes up as being worth more than it was in the summer. It fools us sometimes too, but it's because in the RV world, we use what's called JD Power Connect versus JD Power or KBB in the car world. The consumer gets a potential value. They get a recommendation. There's really not a lot of facts to the values that people get on there. That's why the banks don't use those values. That's why a bank doesn't pull up the same KBB you do to go find the value. They use the one the dealers give them because ours is based on, it could be as low as the vehicle being totaled, repossessed, sold at an auction, all the way to what the retail is in this region. And that same unit might be across the state line worth more than it is here because in that area, the way that trend worked for the same reasons I just gave, created a higher value.
Wow.
It's crazy.
So
Is
you're
there a
talking
time
about
limit to
them
this?
bringing, I'm sorry, Dennis, go ahead.
Is there a time limit to how many this woman you discussed upgraded several times? Is there a time limit that you can do this upgrading? I mean, within a year, or is it?
I think what you're asking is, and I think to be more effective, could the value change enough that it wouldn't make sense? Is that kind of what you're saying?
No, like sometimes if there's you have a year within that you can do this upgrade and get the tax break.
No, doesn't matter.
All right.
But the only thing that affects it, right, is that the older it is, the lower the value, which means your tax credit depreciates, right?
Okay.
We do some other things too. We do some creative financing. Like every now and then, I'll find a unit that's coming in, and at a new store, let's say you ordered one, and every now and then there might be an 8, 9, even a year-long wait for it to come in. But I have a like model. So what I'll do is I'll take the one that I have, sell it to them. We'll put in writing a value for that they're going to get. And when theirs comes in, they trade it in at that value already. Kind of like you guys would see in the home world, like a, what do you call that? A rental agreement to own. What do you call that?
Rent to own.
Rent to own. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's similar to that. So they buy it, but we give them a value. So when the new one comes in, they get that value and we hold to it. It might hurt our profit a little bit, but we don't care. You know.
But so you get the other one back with some mileage on it, and they get the one that they've been waiting for.
And since I get to play with MSRPs and retail numbers, and my profit really doesn't get affected.
What is MSRP again?
It's the manufacturer's. Man, you caught me off guard there. It's basically just the number that allows us to maximize the value of the unit so that the bank can loan against that unit.
Let's talk about bank. What kind of loans are people getting to do these sales?
Well, it depends. I mean, in a sense, the dealership always wants you to get the loan through them, right? Because we get the benefit of that, right? So we'll make as from a few $100 to a couple thousand, depending on the size of the loan. But ironically, if you walk into the bank or you call into the bank, the agent at the desk gets paid also. So why do you care who does it? You know what I mean? The advantage for the dealership is in terms of that relationship for the customers. Now we can help them maximize the value in that unit. So, I mean, here's something to consider. The highest amount of retail income right now in the RV world is service. So if you come in and buy from me, I offer my rates right now $179 an hour for service. If you buy from me, it's $125.
Is that pretty average across the board?
In a sense of,
sorry,
is that no? The average is pretty much about $200 an hour.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and in some dealerships like Poulsbo RV are like $225 and going up.
Oh my. And that's just to like get it oil changes, get things like that.
Get repairs done, yeah.
Get repairs done. Okay, so that's what you're looking at then for RV service.
Yeah, it's a lot. So if you buy there, I mean, I got a customer out here right now who's got a warranty, and I've got his trailer. He lives up in Marysville. He was going to warranty it, and it was going to take it to the dealer. I know how this works. The dealer's going to take care of the retail customer first, right? So if you walk in the door and you don't have a warranty and you have a 10-year-old motorhome and you have a $5,000 fix, I'm a service, writer. I'm taking your business before the warranty work, because the warranty work's not going away, but you could go away, right? So I'm going to do yours first. So they often say that the wait period could be 6, 8, sometimes weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, but really that's most of the time just to get the parts in, right? So a dealer will have you come in, bring your unit, they figure out what they need, then they have you come back, get it, and leave, because they don't have the footprint to hold it, plus all of their retail new stuff and used. So you take it home. Well, what if you live an hour away? So it was an hour drive there, hour drive back, so 4 hours back and forth. Not to mention the person that had to ride with you to bring you home every time you dropped it off, not to mention the preparation to get it ready. And heaven forbid you have it in storage, right? So if you have it in storage, now that's another hour, half hour there, half hour back. It's never right next to the house. You got to prepare. I mean, it's a 2 days worth of work hours job, you know?
Well, so, okay. So, I mean, I've been in an RV maybe twice in my life. It appears that they're like every size under the sun. Do you also handle like fifth wheels and trailers
We do.
and RVs? So, what is an average RV? What would a brand new price on approximately? Is there a range on an average price for an RV versus, like you've talked about, the bells and whistles top of the line? What would a new one run? And do most people buy new, or do they buy something used?
I mean, it's a strange way to calculate that in a sense, because in this area, it's a coin flip, depending on the price. So ironically, the more expensive it is, the more the customer's going to buy new.
Really?
Yeah. In this area, I don't know the statistics, but I've overheard people talk about Pierce County's registration. So we know how many are sold by the amount of registrations per year, right? Whether it be motorhomes, trailers, fifth wheels, doesn't matter. Pierce County is one of the highest, and I'm going to just leave it at that, because it's pretty much in a very on one hand amount of other counties that are even close to it, west of the Mississippi, for the amount of RV recreational vehicles sold.
Wow.
Yeah. So because of that, the money's here.
Yeah.
That's why. So you've got Microsoft, Boeing, Amazon.
True.
You've got Xbox employees. You've got Dropbox. You got all these, internet-based electronic world, kind of perspectives that have this kind of money. I mean, these are the kind of folks that never knew what it was like. Well, many of them didn't know what it was like to make minimum wage at any time of their life, right? Mm-hmm. So because of that, they come in and they'll spend $250,000 like you and I will on a $25,000 Toyota if we ran into the wrong car.
And so, would that be considered an average price for a new RV?
Depends on what you're buying. If you're buying a motorhome that's a diesel and you want something that's inside the age of 8 years, you're going to be around the $200,000 range on up. And that just depends on brand. So like I have a 2017 Integra out here right now for $249,000. So
wow.
That's a 42 foot.
A 42 foot, you said?
Yeah, 42 foot.
Is that considered an average size or large, or again?
I mean, it's large. And once you hit the 40s, you're in the large. Average would be probably mid 30s, 36 to 38 foot.
And you're looking, are there other power sources? Do they have electric RVs yet? Is it diesel versus gasoline, or what are we talking
Diesel
about?
And gasoline and the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
The smaller sprinters are starting to migrate to electric. So we're going to start seeing that trend.
Solar panels on pictures of RVs.
Sure.
So that would be an electric RV with its own.
No, that's not for operating that's not for running the RV in terms of up and down the road. That's for operating the house. So that's for supplying power to, everything. So they've even gotten more sophisticated so that the inverters and whatnot are able to provide enough output because air conditioners, microwaves, those kinds of things take a lot of amperage to start up, right? And then they settle down. So you might suck 20 amps for fire up, and then it'll back off to 10, 8 amps, but if you're in a 30 amp RV that, you just pulled 2/3 of your power just to start it up. Well, what if you've got, your refrigerator running, your furnace running, your stereo running, the 2 TVs on? I mean, you might actually be glamping, and each one of those is pulling 1 to 2.5, amps of current, and before you know it, you blow your fuses, right? So they add these different opportunities for power supplies, battery banks, solar panels, different trends that are out there, and they're getting more sophisticated so that we're finding more air conditioners instead of having a bigger motor to blow harder and create more air, we now have air conditioners that are creating more baffles. So just like the radiator on your truck, right? The front of it has all the little baffles, the aluminum pieces in there. They're taking air conditioners and creating a bigger footprint for the air to be cooled, and they don't need such a big motor anymore.
Oh,
it doesn't have to work so hard. So now you can pull less current, which means that we can provide, solar panels that will work. Because it's hard to get batteries that can put out that much power.
Can you add these solar panels to an existing RV?
Yes.
So if someone buys one, they could do that as an upgrade to the it was used, so it doesn't have to be put in when it was built. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did want to throw one piece out that we were talking a little bit ago about people, bringing their RVs to service and whatnot, and the difficulties of that. Something that we are implementing, we haven't quite got it addressed yet, but we're on the way, is we're doing we're opening a new side to the business called RV Valet. So what we're going to do is one of the things we're trying to incorporate is storage. We're looking for a spot right now, and we're close on a couple pieces of property to store RVs. And then as you store your RV there, let's say you live in an HOA, you can call us and say, hey, we want to go camping on Friday. So now you have an option in the packages. Do we clean it? Do we prep it? Do we fill it with water? If it's motorized, you want us to change the oil, check the tires. All those cost a little bit of money, but not too much, right? It might be $25 for different options, right? It could be $100, just depends on what we're doing. But we will bring it to you, drop it off. You can pack it with the food and the clothes you want. Come back on a Sunday night. Your HOA might give you 24 hours to get it out of there, right? Mm-hmm. We come back Monday at, noon, 4 o'clock, and grab it and bring it back for you. Okay. Here's what that provides is that it means that the customer now doesn't have to base their vacation time on Memorial weekend, Labor Day weekend, and then the 2-week vacation they get a year. Mm-hmm. I mean, what's the point of a $100,000 RV if you're going to use it 2 or 3 times a year? Really?
So will they just be charged for that service when they call it? I mean, like the storage of it, of course, I'm sure there would be at least a monthly fee for that, but the having it picked up and cleaned and that sort of thing, do they have to guarantee a certain amount every month that they pay to you for that? Or
so it depends. So if you have one, let's say you have an RV and yours is stored in my property. Dennis has an RV and his is stored on near his home. So he's paying service already. He gives us access, a key, the code. Okay. We go pick it up, bring it to him, right? So that would be a membership. So we're probably going to charge I don't know the number exactly, but it'll probably be somewhere around between $1,200 and $1,500 a year, depending on your usage. Now you can decide, because that will allow you. Let's say the maximum package would give you we haven't fine tuned this yet, so we got some work to do, but maybe 24 pickups and drop offs a year.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And if we got to gas it up, then we, basically we'll charge probably $1 a gallon more than if you paid for yourself. We gas it up, drop it off to you, blah, blah, blah. Right. And so then for you might pay $200 more a month because we're storing it for you. Right. If you want covered storage, it might be $300 or $400 a month. Just depends on where it's at. So it's not cheap. It's not. But when people are looking, half of the problem is we'll get folks that are so excited. They go home for the night, think about it, and they come back and go, you know what? We realized we're only going to use it one more time this year because it's July and all we have left is Memorial weekend, right? So is that right? Memorial weekend's at the end of summer?
Labor Day weekend.
Labor Day. Thank you. Yeah. So I don't get very much time off during the summer, so I don't know the days, the holidays. That might deter you from making the purchase. But if I said, well, what if we picked it up and brought it to you the next 6 times for free, and after that your membership would start? These gives me options to get somebody excited. So now they can use it once or twice during the summer. They can use it once or twice during the fall. Because, I mean, some of the most memorable times is during the fall, getting out when it's cooler and fishing and hunting. Hiking. There's so many opportunities. I mean, one of the biggest trends that hasn't really taken hold, but it's so valuable is, what about your kids and their sporting events?
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that.
Grandparents love that opportunity to go the night before, park in the parking lot, and they're there all weekend in their RV. All the cars parked around them. They can't get out, right? Because there's 1,000 cars in the baseball parking lot, but they're there for the whole weekend with the grandkids.
I often thought that would, my kids were big in soccer, and we were traveling all over the place. So we often thought, wow, an RV would be fantastic. No. So Jason, tell me, what are the key components or key things, considerations that people should look for when they're thinking about and ready to buy an RV? Size, model, what are the key things you look for?
Well, let's talk about it from a real estate perspective, right? So to kind of fit into what you guys do, property footprint, where can I park it, right? So is it going to cost me to put it into storage, or do I have space on my property? If I do have space, I should talk to somebody that has done this enough times to see about the things that are important. So we might go measure our driveway, measure all these different components, but then we forget the slides have to come out. So now the gate on the fence on the other side, or the bushes on the other side, are in the way. Here's one that really gets in people's craw when they figure it out: the soffit hanging off of the house.
Oh, yeah.
They measure from the wall over, but they don't take into consideration the 1.5 to 2 foot that has been swallowed up by that angle of the soffit. You can't just chop that off, right? I mean, you've got a problem here. So there's just some things to really consider. Here's one thing that is funny, though. A lot of people think that that vehicle's too tall because they look at it. But if you're watching an NBA basketball game and you see Shaquille O'Neal on TV, does he look like he's 7 foot tall on TV? Or does he when somebody smaller stands next to him on the TV?
Yeah.
Right? Same thing with RVs. They see an RV and they think, oh, that's a skyscraper. But oftentimes they're not as tall as people think they are. So they can fit into more. There's more opportunity to park them on your property than people think there is. But those are some things to consider right out of the gates. Okay. Lastly would be what's the approach to the home? So, some folks that want big motorhomes often have the money to have the view, which means there's an incline to their home. Or maybe they are on the other side of the hill and they're on the slope side and you go down to the home, right? So they can have the view, the water, the mountains, whatever it is. So the issue they run into now is, if I need to get my RV out, let's say I have a planned vacation for, I don't know, I'm going south in February, or I'm going, I don't know, just something to consider. If you've got to pull it out and it's icy, can you?
Yeah.
No, you're not. You're waiting for it to thaw out. So those are some simple things to consider just on the real estate perspective. How and when and why, how can I get it out?
HOA, because HOAs do not like RVs for the most part. And they restrict them, like you said, you can be there for 24 hours, 40, sometimes they'll give you 2 or 3 days.
Most HOAs, most people that have HOAs, though, don't buy motorhomes for the most part.
No?
No. They're usually your travel trailer buyers. They're usually the less sophisticated RVers, right? Now, they might use it more in terms of times, 2 days, 3 days, trips to Ocean Shores, trip to Mukilteo, trip to the other side of North Bend, trip to Mount Rainier, just depending on the time of the year, right? So they might go a lot of times in a short 6-month period. But then you take the person that might have the motorhome, they bought it for the 6-month trip. They're going for a long period of time, Here's something to consider too. More people are working from home. They're discovering we can work in our motorhome. With the proper internet connection, we can get out and stay in it. So
mentioning somewhat, the 4 to 6 month trip, that the downsizers that I've dealt with, that's what they bought maybe a manufactured home in a park, like you were talking about. Right. Then they have their RV, and their goal is to go out for 4 to 6 months and travel the United States. So when someone is planning a trip like that, they have to, I know that I've seen RV parks. We have one right here in Bothell where people can go and park their RV. And I think that one, some people are actually living there. But are there many of those in the United States? So you're not stuck pulling into Nebraska and you can't find a place other than a Walmart parking lot to park your RV. Are there many of those parks so they can, is there a directory of them that they could actually plan their trip by, you know what I'm talking about?
I guess here's the one thing you learn. So when my grandparents were camping all the time and I was a young boy, I remember my grandpa, clear back in the early 80s, would plan his vacations a year ahead of time. So they had places they liked to go. So I spoke about the Ashland Shakespearean Festival. That was a big deal to my family. They love to go down there. So they planned it a year ahead of time. Matter of fact, they have their spots specific to the campground where they like to stay.
Mm-hmm.
They would request that spot and lock it up 9, 10, 12 months ahead of time, and then plan their vacation for that spot and that time of whatever the entertainment was, right? But there are times where you just want to go on a trip and maybe you're tired and you need to pull over somewhere. Maybe, hey, you know what? Why don't we stay here because we discovered something happening in the area and we'd like to spend a couple of days.
Right.
You know, whatever that reason is, it's very hard. So there are a lot of resources. You're starting to find more trends. So there's one called, I'll give you an example. There's one on Instagram called Harvest Hosts. It's a site where places there's a brewery off of Dash Point up in the Browns Point area where I used to live. They have a big parking lot behind them, and they have allocated 2 parking spots for motorhomes or trailers for people that come through. Yeah, they pay a nominal fee. It's like $30 a night, but the requirement is you have to eat and dine at the location too, right? So it allows them to get some advertising, I guess, some people knowing where they're at and getting to know the place. But you're finding more wineries doing that. Even people that have Airbnbs that are like off of the beaten path.
I was just going to say that. How about, I mean, people who have room to park an RV on their property, maybe they could
Correct.
be an RV and B.
I get it. Yeah. Yeah.
This is my New Year's added to my family. This is Cooper, and he had to get up and sit in my lap and chew on me for a while. So I apologize for interrupting, but when you see the jumping around, that's him.
This is our girl here. You've seen her before. Come on. This is Tomka.
Oh, hi. Oh, they look like they could be brother and sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She and the funny part is she was way more energetic than I anticipated. So I had to get my dog a dog. So I have another one over there. So
maybe that's what we need. So
I wanted to answer, Dennis, you asked the question earlier. I wanted to elaborate a little bit more on, you talked about things that people might be looking for to help them decide what to buy. I talked about the real estate side of it. The other part of it is in this day and age, because of, I like to use YouTube in this specific space. Everybody wants to give their information and share. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give you an example. RVs right now are creating, there's a black tank, right? So you've got the black tank and the gray tank and the freshwater tanks. The black tank deals with solid waste. I mean, let's be real. I mean, poor people, it is what it is. So sometimes paper products and things can get stuck inside the walls and create issues for the black tanks. So they put these sprayers that have these fingers that circle around and spray high volumes of water in very intense sprays, and so that they can clean it off. Back in the old day, you just put 3 bags of ice down your toilet before you took off. The ice would slosh around and do the same exact thing, right? So here's what I'm getting at. People are getting onto these trends of, we got to have all these little gadgets. Some of them don't really work. They're just gadgets to make the RV look special. They give some play, but they're not efficient at a level that make them matter. And so when you're looking for your RV, you get on YouTube and you plug in how to buy my motorhome. There's 300,000 videos that are going to pop up that you get to go through and see all these people tell you why they picked what they picked, why they wouldn't do it again, why they wish they would have focused on these different things, like a macerator. A macerator is a tool that goes on the bottom of the solid waste tank, so that when the solid waste leaves, it chews it all up so that you can have finer results, and then it leaves easier. Then you don't have to have such a big black tank, right? You don't have to worry about getting plugged up and things like that. Because a lot of people don't know how to use them correctly, so they create problems. So they came up with this macerator, which is really traditionally used for a home that maybe had a pump that was going uphill to the septic system, right? Or even the sewer. So you'd macerate it, make it easier to transfer with water. They work, but they don't fit into, I don't even know percentage, but I'll say 80% of the RVs, they don't have room for a macerator anymore because of how tight they are in those spaces. But everybody insists they want these new buyers. Well, you know how hard it is to tell a 70-year-old man that's lived his whole life that he's wrong?
Yes,
it's not easy.
In fact, I do.
It's not easy. So the reason I bring that up is this. If people would spend more time hearing other people that they can relate to, tell them why, it would make it easier when they come in to look for it. Because there's the information out there to help you figure out what should be important to you versus what you think is important to you.
Okay.
So
Great.
people do come in and they're going to buy most likely a used RV, but they have all these things they want it added onto it. Is that? Oh, okay.
We had a guy about 5 years ago, 2018. I was managing Central Washington RV over in Yakima. Great company, good people. I always recommend them when you're on the other side of the mountains. They're smaller, but their ability to take care of customers and keep other dealers happy because of the way they take care of your customers is remarkable. Jason, Carol, and Christine Moore are the owners over there. This guy came in, he wanted to buy a big old toy hauler Raptor, and he wanted to add, I don't know, like 8 lithium ion batteries and all these solar panels. Well, you do all of that stuff, but the problem is that there's a motor I call it a motor that's designed to handle all this, known as the converter, right? It's converting the AC power to DC to allow it to go, and the batteries are DC, so the power has to be converted to fill up the battery, to run the lights, to do all these different things. It was so small that the batteries were discharging faster than they could be charged. So we tried to tell him, hey, you got to upgrade the converter. And he said, no, I know what I'm doing. And then 6 months later, he came back demanding his money back for the RV because we didn't know what we were doing because the converter was too small. You can lead a horse to water, but sometimes that horse just will not drink.
No.
Yeah. That's the kind of stuff we run into a lot of times, people that know more than just, especially if they have any kind of work in the hands-on field, like contracting, electrical, plumbing. They might be good at fixing their home, but the motorhome is a different world. It's similar, and it's good to be handy, but it's not a parallel, shift. It's not. You can't just go from one to the other and think you got it.
Now,
How do people get the internet when they're in Yosemite or Yellowstone?
I mean, I look at it this way. If your cell phone doesn't have signal, there's more likely you're not going to get a signal. Pretty much the way to look at it. There is some satellite options, but then typically these people are, the campground's never on top of the mountain, right? It's usually in the valley or on the side or in the field, and you've got obstruction. So there are ways to make it happen so that you can at least have some semblance of internet. So if you're in those places, though, you more likely aren't going to have. Okay. But there is times when you and I might have Verizon and we're in an area for some reason Verizon's not working, but the guy right next to you's phone with AT&T is kicking butt. You know what I mean? It's working great. So they make these different components that you can add to your unit. Now, here's a trend, something to remember. Just because they advertise it doesn't make it real. So they might offer the head end part of the internet for your RV, but what they don't tell you is it doesn't have the modem. It doesn't have the components to talk to some resources that provide the internet. So you got to go spend $300-400 for your internet to work. But if you go to that company in the first place for $300 or $400, you can probably get the whole thing and get it taken care of. Many of these dealers don't even know how to configure the systems. You buy it, and then the people in the parts department, the service department, have no idea how to turn them on. None. There's a problem in the RV world. There's really no regulating. If you go buy a Chevy or a Ford and there's a problem, you contact the Attorney General, they contact the powers that be, you're taken care of. In the RV world, everybody goes, what do we do? Who do we talk to? There's really not a power out there to govern this in a way that protects the buyers. That's why you're seeing all these new little laws kicking in. I think one of the new ones that's coming up is that in order to do service work, you're required at some level, I got to read up on it, but at some level to have a certified technician on staff or something like that. These are some new rules that are, it just is protecting the buyer. And as states start to get more privy to the problems, they're starting to implement different things, and should be happening on a federal level, really.
I would agree. Well, it sounds to me, what I'm hearing is that what's probably more important than anything is who you're talking to when you buy your RV.
I use a term that I say is this: when I have customers comparing me to the next guy for a little bit of money, I say you got to trust somebody. And I'm pretty sure I want to talk about the guy that's talking about trust. The other guy wants to tell you why this is better, that's better, his price. We're going to take care of you. You can trust us. You can trust us. It's not the same thing. I'm going to tell you why this one might not work for you. I'm going to tell you why. I mean, there's so many different ways to look at it, but I do a full investigation with my customer before we even go out. We sit down, and I sometimes upset customers because we're sitting at my desk a half hour and they want to go look, and I'm like, I could take you out there, and if I've got 100 of them, you're here to see 2. So it's like in the real estate world, right? If you have a customer that wants a 3-car garage, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, and the real estate agent shows them 3 bedrooms, 2-car garage, 2 baths, they're nice houses. But now the customer starts wondering, is your gross higher on these homes?
Mm-hmm.
They start looking at it from an offensive side of things. And that might not be the case. You might not have any homes to show them. You're just trying to win the relationship so that they'll love you, so that they'll wait with you, right? But that requires some interaction. So you're just trying to get to know them, and they're looking at it from you're wasting their time and trying to just upsell us or whatever. So I sit down with them, and we have a very, very, I like to call it brief, but it is a brief. It's really more about me telling them why, oftentimes, what they think they know they don't. I had a customer a few years back. I'll tell a short story. This guy had been looking for 2 years. He was 72 years old. He'd been looking for 2 years. His wife, every time they walked into a new RV, would just roll her eyes. Several of the salesmen that were on the lot at that time had this guy over a couple of years shopping. He had specific things he wanted, and he said, that RV is out there, and I just can't find it, right? His name was Frank. I don't remember his wife's first name, but finally, after spending about 3 hours with the guy, and I knew that what he wanted is not going to happen unless he added some options to it. I had enough of him telling me either that salespersons weren't listening, dealerships didn't provide the right product. He had all these complaints. Finally, I just said, hey, Frank, how old are you? Frank said, I'm 72. And I said, the average male in the United States at this point in time lives to be about 70 years old. You bought yourself 2 years and you wasted it looking for the perfect RV. So my question to you is, are you going to waste another summer? Because I think it was like April or May at that time. Or are you going to go camping this year so that your wife can enjoy your time and you can take the grandkids to do the things you talked about? First, he looked at me with a little bit of this sort of like, who do you think you are? And then his wife said, he is right, Frank. And he went, oh, you know what? Thank you. He said, here's what I want to do. We're going to go to lunch. We're going to talk about it because we'd spent all morning together. He came back and bought an RV that afternoon. Sometimes it has nothing to do with the RV. It has to do with the dream, and you have to remind people why they're there.
Right.
That's what matters.
Right.
So sometimes you got to get out, because if I told you, hey, give me 10 grand and over the next 2 years, you're going to be able to go have fun, and it's going to be all set up for you. And then you're going to come back and say, this wasn't exactly the fun we wanted to do, but we had a lot of fun and made memories. Well, that's the same as buying maybe not the perfect RV, and you waste 10 grand and you find out you want something a little bit more, a little bit less, but you still had fun. It's perceived value. It has nothing to do with the cost. You would have spent it anyways, except you'd have been in a Chuck E. Cheese or a Hilton or a water slide park or going to the movies. It's all going to happen. In this case, you got to go out and not the perfect RV, right? But you got to go out and learn what it does or doesn't matter. And in some cases, you might not like the RV lifestyle. One or the other of that relationship, him or her, might decide it's not for me, so they get rid of it, But I got more and more single gals over the age of 50, 60 coming now and say, my husband doesn't want to camp, and I've waited 30 years. And he promised me when we retired, well, guess what? We're there. He's not doing it. I'm going on my own. So I don't know. I didn't mean to go on that tangent, but.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. I mean, I think what I'm also hearing is that people don't initially, in their initial ideas, they don't even know what they need, what they should know to really look for an RV and figure out what it is they need and how they're going to get it serviced and where they're going to park it when they're not using it. And there's just a lot of questions that I think they need to answer. And it sounds like they need the right person like you who can help them drill down to what it is they really need and want and how it's going to work for them.
One of the questions Dennis posed to me was, how do RVs offer a practical and flexible downsizing solution for people looking to simplify their lives? I always throw it out there that you're not really simplifying your life. You're just changing it a little bit, because RVs often are designed for temporary living, right? So here's something to consider. Banks, there's only 1 or 2 banks in all of America that will provide a loan to somebody if they know you're going to live in the RV.
Oh, okay.
Keep that in mind. So in that space, what we basically say is you're just going long-term camping, right? Really, I don't care if it's for 2 months or 2 years. You're just going camping, but more likely you'll have a home, an address. You might sell the one you got. You might rent something. You might have a family member you're going to call home. But that's the case. On the other side of it, what I mean by it doesn't exactly simplify their lives is this. It's like if you have a rental versus your home. If you're putting carpet in your own home, you're going to spend so much per square foot because you want the nice stuff. On your rental, you might choose the Berber and the lower end, and you might be changing that every 2 years, right? It's the same with an RV. It's made to withstand, let's say, 3 months of activity a year. And the different components in there will break if they're used too much. So you will find yourself replacing things with newer, better components as time goes on. So be prepared for that, and don't think you have to know it all. The information's out there, right? But what I do say is this: I provide a service. I don't care if you're buying from me, buying from somebody else, getting service from me, getting service from somebody else. The only way I make friends is to be friendly, which requires a conversation. Call. I'm not interested in changing your mind. I'm interested in making sure you get it right. And in the process, you might decide to do business with me instead. But if not, maybe your brother owns the dealership. Well, you can't go to Thanksgiving if you bought from me, right? I mean, I definitely can't show up in your RV.
A better shot at Thanksgiving if what he got from his brother.
Touche. Yeah.
He can't get mad at his brother.
But my point is, in lieu of all of that, I have come up in a world in this industry where we refer to ourselves as the PhD, the doctor of the RV. Most don't. Most don't take the time to train. Most don't even have the wherewithal to tell you, I might not have all the answers, but I'll get them for you, right? That's really what matters. It's wonderful. So there's plenty of times that I've had customers go buy somewhere else. I had one customer, this Asian couple from up north. They're very tough to deal with, especially if they weren't born and raised in America. It's very easy for some of them to feel taken advantage of. And there's a language component there, right? This couple decided they wanted to buy this particular unit. They went all the way back to Chicago, bought it, brought it home. The next year, they were in front of me with their child buying an RV. That couple months later, trading it in to buy an RV. But the reason is because I didn't push them to buy mine, right? I took the information they gave me, which was money was very important to them, the amount that they spent, and I couldn't come down to that price. But I knew the problem was going to be when it's time to get service, they're not going to find local dealers that are going to work with them because they didn't buy it local. Mm-hmm. I'm taking care of my customers first. Just because you walk in the door and want to spend 20 grand on a repair, it's not worth it to me to lose somebody that I make 2 grand on every 5 years in sales, because that person's going to bring 10 others with them. They are. Mm-hmm. And I'm even. And I'm not going to do that for one person. Well, they came back the next year, traded, brought family members. I mean, it really is just about being resourceful, friendly, caring. There's a gentleman that I like to follow named Bob Berg online. He has a podcast, and he talks about we teach people in sales to be go-getters. He teaches you to be a go-giver, and the money will follow.
Yeah.
That's the perspective I take.
Yep.
All right.
So
as an owner of an RV dealership, what advice would you give to someone who is considering downsizing and transitioning to a life of more or less kind of permanently on the road?
If it really, so I think, it's kind of like a sports player, right? Your agent might go after all the money. I'll say it like this. I heard Aaron Rodgers just talk yesterday about this, and in a podcast, that you got a lot of players that chase the money. So we know, if we're all in the football world, the Denver Broncos just sat our old Russell Wilson, right? And they found a way to get rid of him because he didn't work with the head coach, because the clause in there is that if he got injured or didn't pass a specific physical by a certain date, they had to pay him. They had to keep him on salary. But if he passed that, if they kept him and then didn't play him and benched him, right? Somebody like Russell Wilson's going to want to go to another team. Russell Wilson beat the pants off of Aaron Rodgers the last 10 years. I mean, look what he did to Green Bay. How many times did we steal games out from underneath them, right? That we were down by a lot. So there's definitely an aspect of competitiveness between them. But he still had the ability to say Russell was being treated badly. And then in the process of that, he talked about how Denver's going to have trouble finding a new quarterback, because unless they find somebody who wants all the money and they're going to pay him all the money, they're not going to find somebody who trusts the owners, trusts the coach, trusts the program, feels safe there, is going to be able to gel with the guys and create a team atmosphere, because they've interfered with all of that. Well, that's what happens to customers. It really does matter who you buy it from. Mm-hmm. It does matter who's going to take care of you. So a lot of times you'll find the perfect RV, but you'll never go back to that dealership because of the relationship. What good is that to you? Because now you have to start all over again. It's like having the perfect doctor take care of your knee replacement, but he's a complete jerk and he can't relate to people at all. There's no way I'm going back to him for the follow-up.
I can relate to that one.
Yeah. It's the same thing in this industry. It matters who you're talking to and who you're dealing with. And I get lots of customers that have problems and complain, but I look right at them and I say, good. They're like, what do you mean good? Because if you have a problem and I get to solve it, how much better do I look? I can't solve it tomorrow, but I can solve it in time. And if you're willing to work with me, and believe me, we get some people that are frustrated, and we have a lot of names in the world for people that are hard to deal with, that people throw out there, these nomenclatures that aren't very friendly. But bottom line is not every dealership's easy, every salesman's easy, not every customer's easy. So to do the any step of buying an RV, whether you're downsizing, having fun, replacing the one you got for whatever reasons, the number one component is overlooked. Who am I buying it from? And it's really about pretty much the salesperson that's in front of you. Because it wouldn't matter if management pushed hard and said, we're not willing to do this. If that salesperson was any good, they're going to find a way. I really believe that. They're going to find a way to make you happy. And the customer will want to come back.
So customers need to consider the long term, not just, do I get?
Thank you for simplifying that, because I left that part out.
think of the long term. And it's great that I had no idea that you could get somewhat of a tax break. I mean, the sales tax in Washington State is extremely high, and that's an amazing feature that I had no idea about.
Yeah, if you're in King County, it could be 10.3%. You come to Pierce County, it's 9.7. But if you're buying a $500,000 RV, that's $15,000. You know, it's a lot of money.
Yeah, that's hard to. That's really something else. All right. Is there anything else you want to throw in there?
Gosh, I think we could go on to forever, but I think I've asked all the questions that I can think of today. Is there anything else, Jason, that you want to make sure people know? Or
I think that the thing we have to remember is that we sell fun is something I like to broadcast and explain to people. If it's not fun, why are you doing it? Right? So remember that. And the most important component I teach my salesmen is the customer treating you like a human being? It's really important. And if they're not, fire them. They're not, fire them. Yeah. If they're not talking to you and treating you in a way, I mean, I don't care if you know everything or know nothing. You're still the salesperson, right? You're still the tunnel to the light for them to get to where they want to go. Now, they can fire you, they can move on, but it has to go both ways. So we have to remember we're selling fun, take care of the customer. And really, I like to say this too. If you pull into a dealership and they don't meet you with a smile and jump up, you know, and are ready to help you, they should be asking questions for how you speak, what your language is, what your needs are. Mm-hmm. Not here's how we do things. Mm-hmm. That's really, really important. And if you can find that, you'll have peace of mind and you'll have some solidarity so that in the end, even if you don't get what you want at the first, one way or another, you'll end up there because of the relationship. So got to start somewhere.
Right.
Jason, do you have a rental system so somebody could try out RVing before they did a big purchase?
Not yet. The problem is that there is money in that, but you spend it often because the people that want to rent have never had one before often, and they break them a lot.
A lot?
A lot. Yeah.
And
a lot.
RVs are just not quite as durable as, say, a home. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. You know, if you take a car and somebody opens their door into the other car, I mean, you have a little bit of Bondo, maybe a door replacement for $2,000. You know, there's a lot of things you can do. If you punch a hole in the side of an RV and we patch it, the only way to take care of that so the paint doesn't affect it on a 30-foot trailer is to paint the whole side, right? It just doesn't work that way. It's not the same. Or find a way to cover it up with a decal or something. I mean, there are things you can do, but that's what happens. So here's what I'd recommend. There are businesses out there that, and some specialize in this. I do it even as a dealer. If you want to go buy one and you want me to come inspect it for you, just call me. It's just like an inspection fee for a home. We'll go through it. We'll find all the anomalies that we can discover and at least give you some perspective. Because think about it this way. You two both deal in homes, but how often would you have missed something because your mind is on 100 customers and now one inspector comes in to look at one house? Sometimes they don't know any more than you do, but they spot these things because, well, they've got a checkoff list and they're there that day for 8 hours anyway, so they might as well just climb into the attic. You know what I mean? They provide a little bit more of peace in that moment because that's their job. Well, I would do that for a customer. If they call me and I say, hey, you don't buy mine, give me a call anyways, because I think we've got a pretty good relationship. I'll find time to get over there and look at it. And I've done that plenty of times. But sometimes it's at 6 a.m, you know, because I got a store to run. So I'm like, well, if you want to go look at it, we got to go over there early. And they often take me up on it, you know, we get over there and there we go. And I've had customers, I've gotten checks in the mail, you know, here's $500. I had one send me $1,000 last May.
Wow. Because
the unit we found had problems. And when they took it in to find out the cost, it was going to be like $15,000 to fix these issues. And They bought another one, saved a little bit of money. It was good. All of a sudden, I get a thank you card with a $1,000 check in the envelope. That's how valuable it was to them. So, not that I'm asking for people to pay for that service. I'm just saying it really pays off in the end for them.
Well, the inspectors in real estate, I don't go under houses ever. So
yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I
don't even want to go in my own house underneath. I'm not going under somebody else's. Jason, if somebody wanted to look at your inventory or contact you, what's your website?
Pac Northwest RV, all letters, PACNW RV.com. And we're on Facebook. But we will be at the Tacoma Dome RV show here on the 18th through the 21st. It'll be my first show as an owner. So we have a spot right in the middle of the dome. I got a spot there, and then I'm also going to have all my used inventory in the back of the dome, which will just be up the steps on the outside of where I'm at. So I'm pretty excited.
Wow,
Is that January?
Yes.
All right, Jason, thank you so much. This has been awesome, and it really gives somebody who's thinking about that model. I mean, we've talked about these models of different things people can do to downsize from their, maybe probably their larger home to something smaller, to an RV, to having vacation properties, etc. And this has been really good, valuable information for people to, if they're thinking about this RV route. Thanks so much.
You bet. Thank you for the time. I appreciate you.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Feel free to call and ask questions if you have any, or if your customers do. That's why we're here.
Okay.
Questions lead to sales.
That's true.
So that's a good way to start the year, I think. We have a fantastic episode. I hope you enjoyed it and learned some things from it. We are the Edge Group team, and we are just like Jason. We're here to build a relationship and help you. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Jason.
You.
Have a good day, everyone.
Take care.
That's it, folks. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for future episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks. Goodbye.